Hello, hello, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of Elements of Success. Today, we are dropping into all things spring and summer as we journey through our water arc and talk about the flow of the seasons as they relate to our own inner world, our own landscape. And as we get started today, I just want to say I unfortunately am coming down a little cold, so my voice might be a little bit scratchy this morning, but uh, I am the healthiest in my house right now, so I am celebrating that. So let's dive in. So, today we're going to be talking about spring and summer. And just in case you don't know me, I am Safrianna Lughna, the Queer Spirit Guide. I am a licensed trauma therapist turned transformational mentor, author, CEO, speaker, etc. And here's me making some magic. So, before we move into today's content, I wanted to check in and see how things are going with you. Did you explore this concept of personal seasons in your own life? And if so, where did you notice yourself sort of flowing versus forcing through life? Did you learn anything about your body's unique signals? There are so many signs when we choose to lean in and listen and begin to get to know ourselves that really communicate what is going on with our body, our mind, our spirit, our energy. And those little shortcuts, those little signals can help us pivot more quickly. So, listening for our body signals is so important. It's all interconnected. So, launching into today, welcome to spring and summer. Today, we're going to explore the active seasons when energy rises and full expression flows. Spring and summer are, vibrant seasons in many ways. They're seasons of growth and expansion. Whereas fall and winter are a little bit more seasons of dormancy and contraction. So, we're going to explore spring and summer today. Then we're going to explore fall and winter in depth next time. So, spring, main themes emergence, change, and new beginnings. Summer, expansion, collaboration, and visibility. And we're going to dive into the continued theme of pleasure and joy as guidance. This is key component to everything I'm offering you all, and balancing action with sustainability. We joked today that we were going to have a little screen I could put up that said, like, one moment, please, with like a big error sign or something so I could cough my lungs out if needed, but hopefully we'll get through just fine. So, as a reminder, your personal seasons exist within Earth's larger cycles, though they may vary. So, what I want to remind you of there is you might be in a personal spring with a particular project of yours, but outside it's really winter. I had a great conversation literally yesterday morning with somebody, and we were talking about how she really feels energized at wintertime. For some reason, wintertime is when she gets her best ideas and she feels really excited to do some work. But in summer, she doesn't feel that way at all. She wants to actually be doing more rest and play in her summer season. So, this is where it's like noticing how you are impacted by Earth seasons and the way you go through your own flows. Notice how the current season outside affects your current energy. Use the solstices and equinoxes as touch points. This is, I have a series I host with my dear friend, Dr. Melissa Bird. Call it Seasonal Shenanigans, where we celebrate all 8 Wheel of the Year holidays, including the solstices and equinoxes. But anyone can use these as touch points to notice the seasonal transitions outside and to really deliberately check in. And of course, spending time outside when you can, especially during active seasons, is really important. But it is essential we get sunlight all year. So if you can't get your sunlight, please get your vitamin D. PSA, it's wintertime. Please go take your vitamin D. That's why we have so much seasonal affective or depression in winter, is because of the lack of sunlight. But during these active seasons, it's important to notice what's blooming outside and what that is inspiring in us too. And where possible, how can you align some of your work with Earth's rhythms? Because you're not separate from the Earth. Her seasons live and inform your body, live in and inform your body. Good morning, Nancy. As I said right as I was going live, I am coming down with a cold, so hopefully y'all can understand me just fine. So let's talk about spring specifically. Spring is a season of emergence, and dormancy begins to transform into new life. It's such a beautiful season when you begin to see the little green things pushing up through the soil, and things are beginning to sprout and bud and even bloom later into the season. And we see the animals begin to emerge from hibernation. We hear the birds singing again more loudly outside of our bedroom windows in the morning. The days grow longer again. The light begins to really return. And there is this palpable felt sense in our bodies of awakening because the earth is thawing. And energetically, there's a rising energy that is building. It is this transition point between rest and full action. So when we see summer as more of that full action, spring is somewhere between rest and play, rest and action. And this is the preparation and early work stage. If you've ever grown your own garden, you know that early spring is the time where you really need to get your booty in gear, or you will fall behind because you'll miss that window of that growing sunlight that's going to help the seeds sprout. So there is a rhythm and a timing to all of our seeds, our literal seasons. But again, these can be happening inside of us. So what does that look like within us? So you might be entering a spring of your own if you feel like you're emerging from rest or dormancy. So I noticed this. I've actually been noticing it now. I'm in a personal spring right now with my business, actually, where I had been in a winter for a while and I was just not touching it. I was just not looking at it. I was resting. I was letting it be dormant. It had died, literally, because again, my dear friend Dr. Melissa Bird was like, Safrianna, you just need to let your business die as it is. So it's been reborn. And I feel like it's in a personal spring right now because there's strains of new interest and excitement. I'm getting that clarity. I'm gathering resources and information, and the energy is rising, but we're not fully in the doing energetic peak right now. So for you, how do you notice this emerging from dormancy? How do you notice when you are feeling that pull of inspiration towards something, when you want something new? Those are these little signals that you're looking for. And emotionally, there's an openness to possibility. What if rather than I am? So, what if I start this new project rather than I am starting this new project now? You might get to the I am, right? But emerging into spring is really that what if. I'm planting some emotional seeds. And there's a hopefulness that's mixed with uncertainty because you might not make those choices yet. There's also a tender vulnerability, just like when our little seeds are just beginning to sprout, right? Like they could be plucked up at any moment, eaten by a deer walking by or a groundhog, or dug up by the squirrels, right? There's a tender vulnerability. And when we are transitioning towards potentially beginning something new, because it's uncertain, we're not quite sure where it's going to go yet. And then our action signals look like planning and preparing. We're planting these seeds of intention. We're testing and experimenting, but we're not yet fully executing. So that's what spring looks like within our personal seasons. And spring represents change in so many ways. Coming out of that dormancy into growth, into sprouting and blooming, is change. And change is really difficult for so many of us because our nervous systems prefer things that feel familiar. And that just, I mean, it makes sense. That's survival mechanisms. That's how we're hardwired. So there's no shame in it. But change means letting go of what was. And we really fear letting go of the familiar and what we know. Uncertainty activates that survival response. And if you've ever survived a trauma, your uncertainty is going to probably be even more sensitive. Again, no shame, no blame, but we need to know how our nervous systems respond to things. And we might feel fear, failure, or disappointment. We might fear something happening that we're going to be ashamed or embarrassed by. And so change can feel challenging. But spring is really here to support change. It's here to support the growth because everything in nature is changing. You are not alone in this cycle. You are not alone in being a part of a cycle. And over time, we learn that small, gradual shifts are manageable. We can teach our nervous systems, our bodies, our systems that we can do smaller things. I've talked in prior episodes about the limbic system and how important it is to make bite sized little choices that are so easy for us. This is part of that. It's the reemergence, it's not full blown into action all the time. You can move at your own pace and you're allowed to be a beginner. That's, spring is a beginning. It's all the things being reborn physically, tangibly, visibly. So everything's a beginner at this point. All the seeds are starting fresh. So my invitation to you is to welcome the stirring of something new without demanding to know exactly how it's going to unfold. And that can be hard. But this is one of our big human challenges that we get to work with is being okay with uncertainty. Growth mindset is also something that I associate with spring. So, oh my gosh, back when I was a public school teacher, we had these entire lessons. The whole school would get their homeroom and we would have to teach these lessons. And I remember one of them was on fixed mindset versus growth mindset. And a lot of us are stuck in a fixed mindset because that's what we were taught. And so I invite you to think about where you are with these thinking patterns and how you can continue to break free from them. So, a fixed mindset essentially says, I am the way that I am. I can't change this. I'm not good at this. There's nothing I can do. I'm powerless. I can't expand and grow. But just like spring teaches us, new things grow all the time. So, a growth mindset is what we want to adopt, which is the belief that we can grow, we can change. So I'm learning and I'm evolving. I can develop new skills. I'm not good at that yet, right? But there's more openness to knowing that we can grow, that we can change. So in your physical spring outside when things are thawing again, and in your own personal spring, I invite you to practice speaking to yourself as someone who's becoming, right? Not already there, not already achieved, not already complete, but moving into becoming something, transitioning. Celebrate your small wins. Celebrate those moments of growth and view failures or challenges as information, not as a giant failure and a big, red X on your your internal paper. And we've talked about intention before, the power of intention, but I love the metaphor of seeds as intentions because they really are kind of that, right? I have been gardening for several years and I have planted so many seeds that have never sprouted. I planted some like 35 fennel and we got 5. So we plant seeds of intention all the time. They don't always come to fruition. That's okay. But when you go to plant a seed of your own intention, make sure it's genuinely yours, not what you think you should want. Should want. I'm going to use giant air quotes there. It should be small enough to be achievable, right? Not shock your nervous system, not make you have to run into the woods. Your intention should connect you to your values, those deeper things you care about that you want to see happen in life. They should be within your control to cultivate. So, there's not, again, I can't control whether a seed sprouts outside. I can do my best to water it, monitor it, ensure that it has enough sunlight where I plant it, things like that. But I wouldn't be able to go plant something in someone else's yard and expect to be able to cultivate it. But when I say within your control to cultivate, make sure it is a seed you can grow. Make sure it's actually something that's yours to do. It's good to do. You will have enjoyed having done it. Otherwise, why are you planting that seed? Why are you trying to cultivate that intention? It probably has to do with people pleasing at that point. So, how to plant these seeds of intention? Get clear on one new area of growth at a time. Don't try to bombard yourself. I cannot tell you How many times I myself and clients I've worked with have tried to change their diet, their exercise regimen, how they're using their screens, how they're showing up at work. Like they try to change all of these things at once and then they wonder why nothing sticks. Get clear on one thing at a time and allow it to grow until you know you've got it, you know you can cultivate it. Set small, specific intentions. Identify the resources you need so you're not doing it alone, you're not doing it blind, and take one tiny action at a time. Spring is our time of creative renewal and it connects us into that pleasure. Oh my gosh, the smells, the colors, the beauty that exists when spring is blooming. So, for your own internal personal spring, notice what genuinely excites you, what lights you up, and follow that curiosity without demanding outcomes. You would get to explore and experiment and be playful and trust that your pleasure is information about alignment. That as long as the pleasure is not that full, hedonistic, almost dissociative, bingey kind of pleasure, it's genuinely like, oh, I feel so light in spirit and so just good in my skin. And this is juicy and nourishing. That's the kind of pleasure we're looking for. Pleasure that continues to fuel you, not drain you. And creative renewal practices. This is a great time if you feel that emerging to maybe try something you've never done, revisit something that you want to continue to develop. So maybe a creative passion from your past that you've set aside, and learn a new skill for the joy of it, just because. This is a simple journal prompt you could use if you want. What wants to be born through me? That is a great question for spring. What wants to be born through me? So, as we transition here between spring and summer, just that little reminder, we are looking at both the seasons outside as well as our internal seasons. So, just because it's winter outside does not mean you might not have a personal spring or a personal summer happening in your life. But as we just pause here and reflect on spring, again, any place in your life you're feeling this newness energy, this emerging, this desire to come out of dormancy, to put some attention back in something that maybe you haven't put in for a while, those are all signs of your personal spring. So now let's talk about summer. Summer is the season of full expression. Everything is really blooming except for the things that need the cooler weather. But we look around and we see lush green colors, flowers, just abundance. There is this outpouring of energy and vitality. And the days are, of course, the longest of the year. The sun, of course, feels like it's at its peak energy because we're getting it so consistently for long times during the day. And so there is this maximum potential for physical growth out in the wild greens. Energetically, energy feels like it's at its peak capacity again because the heat is the highest it's going to be through the year, more than likely. There is this sense of full embodiment and expression. And in terms of, we're going to talk about this theme of visibility. Everything is very visible outside. You can see the growth, you can see what's happening above the surface. And there's this outward focus. The fruits are growing externally, we see it happening. So it's very out there. You can see it. There's this active creation energy, and there's this energy of sharing. You see the fruits drop off the trees, you see the squirrels running through, plucking things up. It is an energy of sharing. And it's also a time of maximum contribution. So, nature contributing in her own way to the whole planet, to all the animals, and to us. Personally, and oh my gosh, I love all of these capybara graphics that Justin put in. Signs you're in summer. Energized and capable. You are feeling that buzz of like, ooh, I am so excited to do this. I am feeling the joy, the pleasure. There's this active creation, this active expression. So we talked about how maybe in spring the project is emerging. You're like, what if I do this? maybe I'd like this, and you're brainstorming, you're thinking about it, but summer, you are now taking the action. You are putting in the work. You're putting in the umph to get what you want to get done. And there's momentum and flow. You're excited to share whatever you're doing. So your action signals look like in the middle of doing. You're not just planning. You might be continually planning, but you're actively in the middle of doing. You are showing up consistently. You are sharing these gifts publicly. I'm going to say a little bit about that in a bit. Just visibility doesn't have to look the same for all of us, but you are sharing your gifts, collaborating with others. And emotionally, there's a confidence in what you're doing, a joy in the process, a desire to be visible, and an enthusiasm that is infectious. When I talk about my books, people often remark about how enthusiastic I am and how much it lights me up, because that is like my pride and joy. I have all of these emotional signals of summer when it comes to sharing my writing work. So think about that. Where are you really confident? What brings you joy? What activities bring about your own personal summer? Visibility. So visibility is challenging because we fear judgment or criticism. We fear that we're not good enough. Past experiences have made us feel unsafe, and others, of course, are going to have their opinions. So all of that can be really scary, right? We can end up not wanting to be visible because of those past experiences. Maybe we're shy, introverted, like it doesn't matter. We all struggle with visibility in some way because we're human. But summer is about being seen. The sunlight is shining down, everything's visible, it's all out in the forefront. So, what does visibility look like for you? It might be just sharing with your loved ones something that you normally keep to yourself. It might look like, for me, the entrepreneur, being more active and showing up live. There's no right or wrong with this, but visibility is allowing ourselves to be seen, to be witnessed, to be observed, and to share. Going back to that, summer has this almost sharing energy. I mean, I think about like summer picnics are coming to mind for some reason. Like that's a visibility practice. We're all gathered together, socializing and having the summer picnic and sharing these meals that we've brought, these snacks. That's kind of what bringing our gifts to the table is like, right? Whether you are showing up visibly online or in person, interacting with people is being visible and sharing is being visible. So if you've had those harmful experiences in the past, right, it could be challenging, and give yourself a little grace around that. But visibility really matters. Your gifts are meant to be shared, just like this picnic that I just had pop into my head. Others need what you have to offer. You're bringing your own special dish to the party and sharing it with others. And visibility creates connection, it creates community. And we all so desperately need actual community. Oh my gosh, I can feel the soapbox that wants to come in about community. But, for now, I'll just say it is the most important thing and such a forgotten skill in our current world that has become so hyper individualistic. And we get to co create community in new ways and old ways together again. But being seen allows you to receive support. It also allows you to offer support to others, to be in that energy of sharing. And that full expression keeps your fire lit. We talked about in the fire arc, keeping that fire, that flame, that spark within you lit. And that happens through self expression, through showing up as who you are, being in your body, your mind, your emotions, your spirit, your community. That's how we keep fueled. And again, you do not have to be perfect to be visible. God knows I'm not, right? I'm over here like slipping on all my words. I didn't even take the Dayquil. And I've gone live in my bathrobe before, and you know what? People keep listening and keep showing up. So for me, the most important thing is being really authentic and showing up as who you are and sharing what's true for you right now in community. It really supports others too. So, community and collaboration, the reason it fuels us is because others bring skills, perspectives, gifts that we don't have. I've very briefly talked about our blueprint and how we all bring different bio number perspectives, different human design, different astrology, different personality types, you name it. And we all have different intuitive skills and artistic skills and interests. And that creates a robust ecosystem of biodiversity in our communities. It also creates accountability and momentum when we collaborate together. It amplifies our impact when we collaborate and come together. And shared joy really multiplies. It becomes this exponentially building thing. Whereas, when we are really just sharing our struggles and we're focused on that, it can end up dividing. And we need to share some of our struggles. We do, because we need to call out the issues of injustice in the world. We need to speak to the problems. But when we only focus on everything that's going bad and we don't allow there to be shared joy, that makes us really fall flat too. So, some suggestions for your summer, your internal summer, personal summer practice, or when it's summer outside, is to reach out to others and maybe collaborate on something. And again, it could be a project, it could be an event, it could be a get together, it could be a picnic. Join a community around shared interests. Great time to look into meetup groups. Ask for help or support. Celebrate other successes too, right? We're celebrating our success, but also others. And remember that community is your strength. Again, when there's trauma and all the things that many of us have been through, it can be challenging to lean back into community. But I've seen again and again that the more we open ourselves to it, we get really honest, we're willing to be vulnerable, we're willing to be visible, that we find our communities. So celebrating growth, gratitude is something I very much associate with fall. And that is in part, of course, because there's so many traditional US holidays around that time. But it's more than that. Fall is very much the harvest time. But summer is the growth. Summer is the expansion. And we need some celebration in there. Celebration is so important because without it, we burn out before we reach the next milestone because we're not allowing ourselves to win. We're not allowing ourselves to be in the joy of what we've accomplished. We miss the joy that's available to us right now. And if you've talked to anybody who's accomplished a big thing, I bet you they'll say that the journey along the path was more important than getting to the end goal. I know for me, the process of writing, editing, and refining my books is so much more, what's the word I'm looking for? Like nourishing and joy giving and pleasure giving than when I hit the publish button. When I hit the publish button, sometimes it's almost like womp womp, right? Like, oh, it's over. I'm not writing this book anymore. I enjoy the writing process. That really lights me up. So the joy is along the way for me. It's not in completing the book and putting it out in the world, it's the writing. So think about that for you too. What projects do you do? What work do you do? How do you show up in a way that gives you that joy and you enjoy the journey that you're on, not just the rush to get to that end goal? Because that's what a lot of society teaches us, is to rush to that end goal. And if we don't celebrate, we lose connection to why we started what we're doing in the first place. So, how do we celebrate? Well, first we just pause and we acknowledge, like, look at what I did, look at what I created, look at what I'm co-creating. Share your wins with people who celebrate you, document your growth, and let yourself feel the pride in the work that you've put out there in the world. So, my invitation to you right now is to celebrate your blooming right now. Where are you growing right now? For me, I'm really growing in asking people for feedback, and that deserves to be celebrated. There's no right or wrong with what we can celebrate and what we're growing. So joy and pleasure, like I said, coming right back here because this is like the key theme I think of this whole framework, is joy and pleasure are some of the most important signals that we can listen to. And I see these as sort of our summer medicine. Pleasure is guidance. It tells us what genuinely fills us up, what makes us feel most alive. It helps us really feel into those flow states and know what those are like and what creates them. Pleasure is information about our alignment. End of story. If something feels good, it's giving us information about alignment. Now, of course, this has to go through our value systems. Again, I mentioned today, not this like hedonistic blind pleasure where we may actually be harming ourselves, we may be harming others, but genuinely soul rooted pleasure that lights us up, enlivens our spirit, and makes us feel like, wow, more of that, please. Like, this is the path I'm on, and that's great. Like, that's what we want to be looking for. We want joy practices. We want to do things just because they delight us, just because they make us happy. Spend time with people who make us laugh and smile. Engage in our senses fully. There's so many sensory delights in the world: soft fabrics, good smells, delicious tastes, beautiful music, nature. Oh my gosh, just looking at nature and how wonderful it is. Engaging our senses fully brings about pleasure and joy. So, really allow yourself that sensuality of life. And of course, moving your body in ways that feel good. This is one of my key things that you will never hear me say, you must go exercise. We really need to move our bodies though. But the key is doing it in a way that lights us up. And for me, that's dancing in my socks in the kitchen. So, what is it for you? Is it taking a hike? Is it lifting weights? Is it dancing? Is it going to social dance? Is it going to a Zumba class, right? What feels good for you, and create space for play no matter what you're doing, because it is of the utmost importance. The trap of summer though, and this is society, is the trap of summer. I've talked a bit about artificial summer and the idea that we can be productive all the time. That is imperialist capitalism. That is not nature. The trap of summer and the mistake that we make is thinking we can go full speed indefinitely and that we can ignore signs of depletion. I think about our soil outside and how about halfway through the summer this year, I really went, oh, we needed more fertilizer. It really needed some more robust nutrition because it's looking a little depleted in some spots. We are like that too. We need rest and nourishment and sunlight and all the things to keep growing. But eventually we go back towards dormancy. We will become depleted just as plants die. So we can't ignore that and keep pushing, or we go into full-blown burnout. We can make the mistake of saying yes to everything because we think we have to show up for everything. And we can forget that summer still requires rest, right? The sun goes down in the summer. It does. It's out for a lot longer, but it still goes down, still needs rest. The plants still go into their, other phases overnight, where actually like all kinds of things are happening inside of them in their rest. Rest is important. So don't get trapped in this idea of artificial summer and believe that you have to be on all the time. That's why there's 4 seasons. That's why this framework reminds us that it's not all the same all the time. Oh my God, look at this capybara. So, how do we sustain summer energy? How do we actually maintain what we're doing without burning out? Well, daily rest, making sure we're building in daily rest practices, checking in with ourselves. How am I actually feeling? Saying no to things that don't align. So I have been challenging everyone I know to say no more, because we say yes to almost everything. Like, it is practically second nature to many of us to just be like, yeah, of course. But we need to say no to more. We need to know that our energy does have a limit and we need our rest. And pacing like a marathon, not a sprint, right? When we think about these being in summer and taking action, you're in the midst of doing a project. You are ideally not sprinting to try and cram all of that project in. I say that, as a person who's written several books in like a matter of a week or 3 days. But But for me, that was really nourishing and felt really good and had lots of other things built into it. So, for the most part, these are long, ongoing things. These are not sprints. So, we want to make sure that we are sustaining our energy for the duration of what we're working on, not just cramming it all into one moment and burning out. So, the key question for you is this generating energy or depleting it? As I look at this capybara on the beach, I can't help but think about families going to the beach in the summer. And oh my gosh, what do? They get up early, they get some breakfast, they pack for the beach, they go to the beach, they're sweaty, they're hot, they're covered in sand. The kids are cranky. They go out for like a late lunch, dinner. They're still covered in sand and ocean water and sweat, and the kids are crabby and miserable. And then they go out mini golfing afterwards, and then they go see a movie, and then the kids are absolutely miserable by the time they get home to the hotel for the night. That's kind of how we treat summer all the time. Is like, let me pack in as much activity as I possibly can, whether literally tangibly summer or our own personal summer. We just try and cram in as much activity as we can, and then we wonder why we're exhausted. So pace yourself. All right, let's meditate. So I'll just invite you to take a nice breath here as we tune in to the energy of spring and summer, our active seasons. As you inhale, perhaps you imagine this inhale like a gentle spring or summer breeze. The exhale, just as soft, maybe like a wave receding. Playing with the imagery of spring and summer in your mind's eye, in your body, in your spirit here. As we allow the breath to bloom and grow. Taking in energy, feeling that fuel. Spring and summer are the seasons of light. They're the seasons where the light is growing, where the light is at its peak. The heat is growing into its peak. These seasons are times for activity, for growth and expansion. These seasons are times for play and pleasure and joy. So I invite you to imagine yourself walking through a nature scene here in mid-spring as everything is blooming. The green is reappearing after the dormancy of winter. As you walk and breathe, you can smell the flowers, that scent of moist earth. Maybe a gentle rain begins, a perfect temperature, and you watch it darken the soil and collect in dewdrops on the blades of grass and the leaves of trees and flowers. And you feel this perfect rain cleansing you, washing away the dormancy, washing away that state of stasis. And perhaps seeing yourself here spinning, arms out wide, chin uplifted towards the sun as the rain fades and the sun reemerges. And the world blooms all the more, the flowers growing, the green deepening. As you see this miraculous transition into summer, the sun even brighter, hotter, seemingly higher. Notice all of the colors of lush flowers fully blooming, trees budding their fruits, showcasing their gorgeous flowers. And feel the energy in your body, head to toe, that sunlight, rejuvenating, revivifying, seeping into every cell of your being, drinking in the sun, drinking in all this beauty and growth and expansion. Feeling this in your body. This is what it's like when you're in your joy, in your pleasure, in your vibrance. Breathe that in and allow it to move through every cell of your being. And maybe there's a symbol here. Maybe there's a particular flower that calls to you or a leaf from a tree, but just taking stock of this spring summer scene and seeing if there's a symbol that you'd like to take with you, a seed you'd like to plant in your heart that represents this new relationship that you plan to have with your own internal and external seasons. And if there is a symbol for you, just allow that to mesh into your heart space, almost as if you're plucking it up, pressing it to your chest, and feeling it plant deep within your heart. You get to be in beautiful relationship with Mother Nature and her seasons. You get to celebrate the joys of the reemergence of spring, celebrate your reemergence of ideas and energy after times of dormancy. You get to embrace the light, the joy and pleasure, that which you are aligned with, that which lights your spirit up. You get to claim these and carry them with you through life. Breathe it all in, allowing it to seep into every cell of your being. Mother Nature supports and guides you inside and outside through her symbolism, through her cycles, through her journey reflected in your own. Feeling this connection to the earth, feeling your own seeds planted, gently releasing this practice and coming back into the present moment, blinking the eyes open if they were closed, and taking some moments to look around your space. Little no tiger twist. Mm. Well, my friends, I hope that that imagery was able to be beautiful for you or just remind you of your connection to nature in some way, reconnect you to nature in some way. My intention is always to inspire you to be in ever more relationship with Mother Earth. So, as we wrap up today, your practice invitation is a spring/summer action plan. So, for spring, maybe identify one seed or intention you're planting in your life right now. So, again, we have a season for every season happening in our lives at every given time. That's just the nature of us. But what is a seed you're planting right now? What resources do you need? Actually, name those. Set one small action for this week to move you in that direction and connect to what excites you and why it excites you. And for summer, things that you're in summer with, acknowledge what you're in the midst of creating. Identify a way that you can be more visible or more collaborative. Schedule some celebrations of your growth, or don't even schedule it, just celebrate it right here, right now. Choose one pleasure practice to sustain your energy. Give yourself the full permission to do what lights you up and what sustains you and what builds your own fire back up. And check in, is this generating or depleting my energy? Just paying attention, more noticing. That's always my invitation, right? And how can you honor both growth and sustainability? I actually just recorded a podcast the other day on sustainability. Actually, growth is not a growth is a constant and not a constant. Like, something is always growing, but nothing fully grows all the time. There is dormancy, there is rest. So sustainability requires us to make room for that rest, make room for the dormancy. How can you honor both? This is your big question, is how can I do what's mine to do in a way that doesn't burn me out? Because so many of us are struggling with continued burnout. All right. So as we wrap up today, coming into our second to last water arc, we'll be talking about autumn and winter next, or fall and winter. And we'll talk about how autumn is reaping rewards and practicing gratitude, letting go with compassion, like all the harvest things. Winter is a time of sacred rest, wisdom from stillness, death and dormancy, as we've talked about today, how necessary it is, and how to create some rituals for completion and restoration. So that's where we're going next. And then we will have a final water wrap up before we move into our next arc. But I hope that this was nourishing for you today, that you are more curious about what the energy in spring and summer is like for you, and inside and outside, right? Like, in what's happening in Mother Nature and in what's happening in your life, in your spirit, in your emotions, in your energy, right here, right now. Because I guarantee, like I said, if you really were to look at it, you have all four seasons going on in your internal world at the same time, with different things, different projects, different domains. So, all right, my friends, I survived. I didn't have a coughing fit, so I am celebrating that. And I love you all so much. I see you. I believe in you. I'm cheering you on. I believe that the more we come into communion with nature's rhythms and cycles, these seasonal flows, the more satisfied we will all be as human beings, feeling that interconnectedness of all life, feeling our place in the world, and the way that we are impacted by the world. So keep tuning in, keep listening to your body and to what is being beckoned outside with Mother Nature, what's beckoning to you from outside in Mother Nature. Listen, she is calling, I know. So until next time, my friends, I'm Safrianna Lughna, the Queer Spirit Guide. As always, thanks to Amy and Nancy for sponsoring the show. Love you all so much. Talk more soon.